Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. I thought today we'd do something fun. I'm going to make 3 different kinds of ring shanks, so you got some variety kind of projects to choose from. You can vote for which one you like the best in the comments section, and I've already made a bezel for a rectangular piece of larimar, which I think will go well with any of the 3. So you can vote for which one you think I should use, and then after I've given it a week or two, I will put the ring together and I'll post a picture of it in the community section. So let's get started. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that are available on my merch store. Most of them have some useful metalsmithing information on the back. This particular one has flow temperatures of various types of solder. Some of the other ones have conversion charts or other useful metalsmithing information, but what I really like is the dot matrix in the background because it's not as intrusive as graph paper, so it's kind of in the background, but it still is there and helps me to draw better pictures of my project. And ever since I started the YouTube channel, I've been drawing up what I was going to do, and that's massively improved my skills and also given me a record of what I've done so I can refer back to it if I want to try it again or modify it slightly or whatever. So I can't remember all however many projects I've done on the channel now, so it's good to have a record. Alright, so here's that little larimar stone. It's kind of a pretty one. It's got some internal fracturing and stuff, but I kind of like that. Let's see if my ruler's over here. I forgot to measure it. These ones were kind of crudely cut that I have, but this one's basically rectangular, and it's about a 9 millimeters by 7 by 9-ish, so kind of on the thick side. So I'm going to use 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip in 26 gauge, which equates to 4.76 millimeters by 0.41 millimeters for the thickness, and 26 gauge sheet for the bottom, which is also 0.41 millimeters. But really this video is about making different shanks, so we get to pick between these 3 for this particular stone. I drew these a little bit exaggerated too. They're not going to be nearly this long. I'm going to shoot for maybe 7.5 to 8.5 size rings, maybe closer to 8.5. It's kind of a wide-ish stone. But first one is going to be pretty simple, but I'm going to use 14 gauge round wire for most of these, with the exception of just a little bit of 18 gauge wire on this one to make a little cut out of that, just to do something different. Cut across that just to do something different. But we'll solder 2 of these together and make them into kind of diamond shapes pointing at each other, and then put a little cross beam in there, and then the stone would be mounted between them. So that'll be number 1. Number 2, we're going to do just kind of we're going to make a big loop and make it really narrow and long, like cigar shaped, and then we'll solder a bunch of little silver balls in between them for decoration, and pretty small ones. We'll make them out of some scrap wire. Like I said, this will be 14 gauge or 1.6 millimeters as well. And then finally we got number 3, which is kind of three wires thick, so it'll be a little bit thicker. And I exaggerated these loops a little. I might not make them quite that big, but the center point, I want it to curve this way a little bit, and then this one this way, and it's kind of hard to see that in my drawing because I was a little bit sloppy today. And then we'll mount this, kind of between that, if that's the one you choose. So, all right, so let's start with this one, and we got to figure out about how long a pieces of wire we need. We can overestimate a little bit if we need to, because we can always cut it shorter on the backside and take a little piece out if we need to. But we're going to start by making this flat. So let's find a little tag board here. I'll use this to measure around the ring mandrel, and we'll get kind of a size we can start with. Alright, so if we're shooting for like an 8.5, I always, when I'm measuring this way, you can use your formula or whatever you want, but we got to consider that we're going to deduct the length of the or the width of the bezel, because that's going to become part of the length of the overall ring shank. So I usually add about an extra 1/8 of an inch there, and that's the side we're going to measure with. But we also have to consider on this one, if I just do straight lines, that'll take us right there, but and get us pretty close to the right length after we deduct the width of the bezel. However, when we file the ends of these so that it has a little notch in it and then bend them outwards and then inwards like that, it's going to shorten this overall thing a little bit. So let me think about this. So normally we would deduct this amount, right? So about right there. But we also need to add a little bit more to compensate for reducing this. And I'm going to just kind of guess about that much and see how close we get. You could probably calculate it a little better than I did, but that'll get us in the general range. So this is a 14 gauge round wire. So let's cut 2 of those to that length. Okay, I'm going to spend a minute getting these really straight. I find when I'm straightening wire, if I just hold it with the pliers and then use my fingers. Some people will roll this on a smooth block, like in between 2 steel blocks or 2 hardwood blocks. You can do that if that's the way you like to straighten stuff. I don't have any objects that are super smooth, so I tend to beat up the metal when I do that. I've got one block that's really nice that one of my viewers sent me, which was kind. With round wire, you can tell you're pretty close when it rolls on the table nicely. Very small, slight variation there, but that's pretty close now. So we got to figure out basically how far down we want to go to make those. So if I want these to come together right there, let's use this. Should we use the smaller? I didn't realize it's very proportional. I think this one's more symmetrical, honestly. So let's go to about there. If I flip this around, should be able to mark them on both sides then. You can see I'm not quite perfectly straight. Let's see if we can get a notch filed in here. I'm going to file a notch so I can bend them sort of sharply. And if I do one right here, first mark, I'm going to get kind of a 45-degree angle there. Technically it's 90, but 45 degrees to this. So let's make sure we line this up the same. I almost did them on the same side, but we need to do the other one on the opposite side. So right here. Let's see how good our filing has been. I think that way is going to go better. So let's solder the middle together, and then I'll get these configured how I want, and probably file these a little bit so I can get them closer together, and then add that little bar going across. So let's start with that. If you've not been to my channel before, here's my soldering setup and torch and everything. You could use square wire for this if you prefer. Honestly, I like the way square looks a little bit better than round, but just for something different, use some round this time. Square, it tends to look like one piece that splits, you know, versus round, which looks like two pieces soldered together. So, reasonably symmetrical. That's close enough. I think I'm going to go ahead and solder here, 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 and here on all of those. So I might do a little pick soldering. You don't have to. You could just lay some little tiny pieces of solder there, but I find pick soldering is a nice way to precisely place stuff. If you're interested, I'll put a link up there for you to see how to do that generally. Alright, I'm going to find a little bit of 18 gauge, hopefully. That's 20. See if I find a little piece of it laying around somewhere. Still got some little bits of solder over here, so let's give it a try. Quite a bit more mass in the bigger piece here than there is in this little piece, and that's usually how you kind of figure out where to heat things. It takes a lot longer for a big piece to get up to that 1450 degrees Fahrenheit that a hard solder flows at, which is what I'm using. But the little piece there gets up there almost immediately when you expose it to the flame, so it's there's already some solder in there, so I may not even need to add much, but we'll see. That's a little better. Okay, nothing moved too far out of the way, so I think we're good. It's pretty decent. So What we'll do is let this clean up, but bend it around the ring then if we want to and see how it looks. So what we'll do if you choose this one, solder these so they're a little bit more up and down, and that'll be the profile in that ring basically once it's in there. But in order to get that to sit nicely, we'll have to do this. So I think that would make an attractive ring. That's number one. So we'll set him to the side in the pickle for now. Well, let's do number two. We want to make, where's that piece of pegboard I used to measure the, there it is. Okay, this one, same length really, but since we're going in a single piece around, we want to kind of double it. And that was to right about there. But actually this one, well, we got to consider it's going to go around here, and that's going to add a little length too. So probably about midway between those two, just at a guess. There's no real magical formula that I'm using here for the length. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, so feel free to use whatever mathematics you prefer to achieve your goals here. If you have a miter vise jig, that's a good time to use it for stuff like this. So you get a nice, neat connection, because ultimately we're just going to solder these two together here to start with, and then we're going to make some balls and solder them inside of it. So that shank I just made, or any of these shanks, you wouldn't have to use a rectangular stone. You could put a different kind of stone in there. You could do a long, skinny oval or something. That might be kind of cool. I thought about doing that today. You could do a faceted stone in a bezel if you wanted to, or even a faceted stone in a prong setting if you're at that kind of a level. And I remember when I started making the same band over and over again, and I got tired of doing that. And it also makes things more interesting if you don't just do the same thing all the time, I think. I'll put the solder joint somewhere on the side here, so you don't really want to have it right at the top of the ring, probably. Just in case we didn't do a great job of soldering it and it looks messy. I think we did okay, but Okay, I did a couple of small balls to get an idea of how big we wanted them to be. They're pretty small, so if these seem too small, or if I need to squeeze it tighter to get them to fit, I think they're okay. We just want to maybe squeeze this a little bit tighter together. That's about right. So I think I'm going to go with that. Spend a minute getting this just a little bit neater. And then we'll make some balls and solder them in. Okay, let's make some balls. Make them on a charcoal block. You get better balls on a charcoal block generally. And if you want to get consistently the same size balls, take the same size wire and stick it in a hole you've drilled in a block of wood to the depth you want. Cut it off, and you get equal sized pieces of wire that will ball up the same. can put them on, if you do them in little cavities like this, you get rounder ones. So let's do those that way, and then I'll do the rest of them that way too, but just to show you how that works. I'll heat it till it turns into a nice ball. Alright, I will make the rest of those, and then I'll be back in a minute to solder them together. Alright, I got a couple of them on either end, just kind of spread out a little bit. I'll add them gradually on here. You could just balance a piece of solder on there. I'll probably pick it again. So I just find that a little bit easier, personally. Live life dangerously. Okay, got the last three in there. That's pretty symmetrical. Let's cool that off and bend it into a ring shape. See how it looks. I feel like this one will give it a whole different look, you know. So I will also, just like on the previous one, file this at an angle so it meets up nicely with the bezel itself. Okay, we'll let that one pickle and we'll start working on the third one, I guess. For this one, I think really the length can be determined by the inside wire here, because that's going to meet up right with the side of the bezel, and then we need a little bit extra for the curlicues on the end. So we'll have to kind of gauge that a little bit. But let's cut the middle one. The other thing I was going to do on this last one is taper these ends to kind of so the wire gradually gets thinner as it goes down. Sometimes just changing the diameter of the wire throughout the length of the design you come up with makes it look a little bit more fancy. this guy straight. That's pretty good. Okay, so how much extra do we think we need here? Maybe, I don't know if I'm going to make these loops quite that big. So maybe about that much extra. So maybe there, 2. It's easy enough to cut more off if I need to. It's harder to add more. We'll go with that and work with it, right? Okay, I think my next step, let's see if we can find the center of these. That should be pretty close to the center of that. Okay, here's my thinking. We line up these center points. We really need this to, we need these to curve out before they get to the end of this. So maybe about like that. Okay, I think that should kind of get us where we need to be. So for these outer ones, I'm going to bend them outwards. Same way on these ones. So there's the idea, we just solder those together like that. Just trying to get those to kind of progress out to the same distance on either side. So I added just a little bit more to get it to flow further in the spots where it really needed to go just a bit more. In order to get these to taper down, I'm just going to do this. So, that looks pretty good. I used to tease my beginner classes because when you watch people learning how to file, they developed distinct facial expressions while they're filing. So they call it their filing face. That's kind of cool. I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but my thought was bend one of these that way, like that, and the other one the other way. Okay, let's solder these ones closed. And we can shape it into a ring shape and see how things look. Then we'll know how far down to cut these off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start filing this in this dimension. Okay, I'm going to use the rotary tool to trim the inside piece just a little bit closer, because this bezel slightly bows outwards on the outside there. So I'll be right back. That's remarkably close for a first go-round. Usually takes me a little while to get things lined up right, but that's not bad. Of course, if I end up using this one, I'll probably fine-tune it a little bit so it's nice and straight. But yeah, that'll be the third one, so let's get that cleaned up. I will get some pictures for the end of the video, and in the meantime, when you're watching the video, if you tell me which one you like the best, I'll tally the votes after a week or two, and then I'll put the bezel in that one. So that's kind of that one, polished up a little bit. That's number one. Number two, it's kind of like that. And then number three, the more fancy one. So tell me which one you like the best, you know, and which one I should make the band for this particular bezel. Alright, well that was 3 different simple ring shanks. I think they're all within the reach for beginners probably. So have fun with those. I think you could change those up a little bit here and there and make all sorts of variations. I bet with the creativity that you have, you'll be able to come up with some even cooler designs. If you enjoyed that, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button before you go. And I think it might behoove you to go check out my main channel page on YouTube here. I have over 650 videos now. Many of them are projects or skill-based things at all different levels. And I think you're almost certain to find something useful or interesting over there. So check out a few of those. It would be great if you'd subscribe to the channel as well. All of that stuff helps to get my channel promoted. And feel free to leave comments. Like I said, vote on which one you like the best. Whichever one gets the most votes, I will make a ring out of it. So I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I have a new one. His name is Mark B. Thank you, Mark, for signing up. I think you'll find that that's a lovely community over there with a bunch of cool people. I appreciate all of your financial contributions, as well as the fact that you've made it into such a nice place over there. So thank you to all of my patrons. My YouTube subscribers, we're getting close to 29,000. We're at 28,900 and some. Thank you for that. Thank you also for the lovely comments. And telling me your story or how you do things, or sharing your knowledge with me, which also shares it with my viewers in the comment section. So I think it's great when people tell me how they do things. That way people can get just not my experience, but other people's experience as well. So thanks for that. Thanks for the financial contributions. The Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, the merch purchases from my shop, my ebooks, all of that stuff makes my channel sustainable, and I could not do this without your help. So thank you for that. The video description down below has some important links. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. There's a link to my shop if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks, or a mug, or a t-shirt, or some other metalsmithing related stuff. And there's a link to my newest ebook, which is a guide to 2025's tutorials. It has a page for each tutorial I did in 2025. On each video page there's a link to the video. There's a list of materials, there's a picture of the sketch I drew beforehand, there's a picture of the final outcome, a difficulty rating, stone information if it had stones in it, and a notes section where I tell you some of the things I thought about or learned from it, or might do differently if I was to approach it again. So all sorts of extra information there. It's a great way to have tons of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel, so thanks in advance for that. Oh, and you can even get all 3 of the years that I've done, 2023, 2024, and 2025 as a package. So look for that on the merch store. There's a link to get all 3 of them at once for $15 off. So thank you in advance if you do that. Thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.